If you are a predator hunting addict, this one's for you. I've got the king of all predator addicts on the phone, Mr. Fred Eichler, good buddy of mine. He's always just an absolute riot to have on the show. One of the nicest guys ever, one of the most successful hunters you'll ever meet. And Fred has a predator hunting addiction. He's hunted predators on 3 different continents, ranging all across the board. He's done it all in every way that you could ever think of. And we're here to talk about predator hunting. We're here to talk about the conservation that predator management brings. We're here to talk about some of Fred's wildest stories of calling, mountain lions into 15 yards. And when he's on the ground with them, calling grizzlies in, calling fox in, just a couple feet in front of his face. He shares some crazy stories. But we end with a lot of tactics to help you be more successful on your coyote hunts. Coyote hunting is something, they're in all 49 states. They're in 49 states. And like Fred laughs about, there's probably one swimming to Hawaii right now. So coyote hunting is so accessible. It's something that if you live in an area where getting access to ground is hard for whitetails or ducks or turkeys, getting access to predator is so much easier because landowners want them killed, hunters want them killed. So you can really get a lot of access to a lot of different places to hunt coyotes. They're so accessible. They're so cheap to hunt pretty much anywhere you want to hunt them. So predator hunting offers some really good opportunities. So Fred is here to give you the rundown. If you're brand new to coyote hunting, where to start, what kind of calls to use, how to set up a calling scenario to get coyotes to come in. But he also talks some high level information to maybe give you some tips if you are a seasoned coyote hunter. Guys, it's a really fun episode. I don't think you could ever have a boring conversation with Fred. So you're going to laugh. You're going to hear some really crazy predator stories, and then you're going to become a better coyote hunter. Guys, this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Blocker Outdoors, making some of the best predator gear on planet Earth. They're one of the few companies that make gear dedicated to predator hunting, but we're also gearing up for turkey season, and they make hands down the best turkey hunting gear you'll ever get your hands on. So go check out Blocker Outdoors for all your predator hunting gear and to gear up for turkey season. But let's dive in with Mr. Fred Eichler and talk predator hunting.
For the true sportsman, it's more than a pastime. It's a way of life. Embrace the lifestyle of hunting, fishing, and the thrill of the wild. Live the life. Be typical.
I have had a long time love for Garmin products, and for good reason. When it comes to smartwatches, when it comes to GPS wearables and handhelds, when it comes to devices to stay in touch with my friends and family when I'm off grid, there's just simply nobody that can compete with Garmin. Here's the best part. They make something for everybody in every price range. So whether you're looking for something like the Instinct, which is one of my favorite watches of all time, it's incredibly well built. It is priced phenomenally, but it is also just as tough as nails. You could throw that thing through a meat grinder and it's going to come out just like the day you bought it. All of that, and it still offers me all of the GPS features that I need when I'm on the mountain, still offers me all of the cool smartwatch features that I want when I'm in the office or at the gym or tracking my sleep habits. And then you move up to something like the Tactic series, which has ballistics built into it. It's got lights built into it so that you can use it as a flashlight around camp. It has full color GPS maps. Guys, Garmin has something for you. And then you move on to something like the InReach, which is the best thing that you could ever have to stay in touch with friends and family when you're off grid. Let me tell you something. Mama likes getting text message when I'm on the mountain just to tell her that I'm safe and that I love her. But it also gives her an incredible peace of mind knowing that that little device in my hand, if something were to happen with the touch of a button, I can let her know where I'm at. I can also alert rescue teams to let them know where I'm at. Guys, I literally trust Garmin with my life. And then as far as the bow shop goes, they make the best chronographs that you could ever get your hands on. Guys, here's what I'm going to tell you. Whether you're looking for a new wearable to just get smart notifications when you're in the office, or a new wearable to track your sleep habits and your workouts in the gym, Or whether you're looking to go off-grid with full-color GPS maps, Garmin has a wearable for you. They also have a full line of handheld GPS and devices to stay in touch with friends and family. Guys, go check out Garmin.com because I have never one time went wrong with the Garmin product. Mr. Fred Eichler, the original, the OG. We got the real Fred on the phone. What's up, man?
How you doing, big guy? We've had some great podcasts together, known each other a few years, and things are great, man. I can't complain. Actually, I had one of my fainting goats had triplets, so I spent a lot of the night last night. We were working on bottle feeding it and getting that third little one going. But they're all three feeding and up right now, and then our calves we got cows dropping calves, so been pretty busy here on the ranch.
Do you got any pretty goats?
Yeah, not screaming goats, but I do have the fainting goats. They're pretty.
I've always said somebody needs to get screaming goats and fainting goats. So when the screaming goats scream, the fainting goats will faint. It'll be epic.
Dude, that would be. I like the way you think, Dylan.
You can just sit there and watch it for hours.
Well,
It'd be awesome.
The fainting goats, when they pass out, you can't have a bad day if you watch a fainting goat. It's hysterical.
Yeah. Now, I've been told, because I used to love the videos of those, but I've bbeen told, is that bad for them? Like, does it hurt their nervous system?
I hope not, because I do it to them every day. No, I really don't think it is. They'll pass out when they get excited over food. If you bring them a treat and they recognize ooh, that's some corn, they just literally will start running to you and they'll pass out.
Just get excited. I'm kind of the same way though. Like when Mama rings the dinner bell, I'm kind of just get too excited,
I love it.
I oftentimes tell people, you said, we've had some good podcasts over the years. I've oftentimes said people, one of the highlights of my podcasting career and podcasting journey, and this was back when I was at Bear Archery, I get a phone call and they said, hey, don't tell anybody yet, but we're signing we're signing Fred Eichler. And I'm like, no way, dude, that's so cool. And they're like, and we want to announce him coming on the podcast. So I got to do the interview and the release, to the Bear Archery community that Fred was joining the family. And that was just surreal to me. I got to do that for you and Chuck Adams. So it was just like, man, so cool to be able to do that and share in that history of you joining the Bear Archery family.
Well, thanks, man. It was a fun time. And I started out at Bear Archery, as you know, and ended back there. So it's really, really cool. A bunch of good people, and they're keeping Fred Bear in the loop, which is really huge to me.
Yeah, it really is.
History.
There are no, and I've shared this a little bit, even though I've left, there is nothing but admiration and respect there. The fact that they carry on that history is just insane to me. They do it so well. I believe they honor Fred's legacy so well, and
yes.
And they continue to make archery accessible for everyone, and that's it's really cool to see a company like that. And I mean, they've been making bows for almost 100 years now, and they still make phenomenal bows. So,
yep.
But we're here to talk one of my favorite addictions.
Mine too.
Predator hunting. Now, when we got on the phone, you immediately started sharing that you've killed predators on 3 continents. First off, I think that a lot of people, right when you hear predator, you just think coyote and you just think, bobcats or mountain lions. But the predator hunting family is so much larger than that and smaller than that. I mean, you think coons, you think grizzlies. So what do you define? How do you define a predator?
Man, even some omnivores, you know what I mean? Like black bears, for example. I've called in black bears. I consider a black bear a predator, although it will also eat fruits, vegetables, corns, things like that. But so will a coyote. A lot of people think coyote's just a predator. Coyotes eat blackberries. They eat fruit. They eat, you know what I mean? They'll eat grass. You know what I mean? They'll eat all kinds of stuff as well. So really anything that isn't, just a prey animal, although some predators, of course, you know what I mean, feed on smaller predators. But anything that makes a majority, I guess, of its living or as a predatory animal. So, what I was telling you is that to me, predators have always fascinated me. I mean, it's one of the first things I started doing was trapping. Before I'd ever really shot anything, I was out, besides squirrels and rabbits, I was out trapping predators. Trapping is has taught me probably more about hunting than almost anything else. But, my love for predators is I've traveled to learn a little bit about different predators I didn't know anything about. I've been very fortunate, to have taken African lions and leopards and hyenas and jackals and, and then a dingo. Like, I was like, man, I got to go after a dingo, a wild dog in Australia. That sounds really cool. And they thought I was crazy. I literally went to Australia. I was like, I want to figure out dingoes. I want to call in a dingo. And they thought that was, they were like, oh, all right, whatever. And, I've called in 2 wolves. I'm probably most proud of that, calling in wolves. And getting both those on video, and harvesting those or killing them is what we were doing. One case, because it killed a whole pack of lion hounds that a friend of mine had. And so he's like, please come up here and kill these wolves. And then of course there's coyotes, the bobcats, there's, all kinds of different fox, red fox, swift fox, gray fox, and like you mentioned, raccoons are fun. Possums are fun. Calling skunks in are fun. Badgers are fun. I've got some awesome video I posted on YouTube that people thought was really cool, except for my cameraman. We called in a mountain lion to about 15 yards on video.
That.
You know what I mean? Came running right up to the call. Literally, like, it got to the call and it looked at us and it was zero fear. Like, it was like, yeah, you guys got me. All right, good one. And it turned and walked away. And unfortunately, we couldn't shoot that, even though in parts of Colorado, and regulations are crazy in a lot of states, but even though in parts of Colorado, you can call in a mountain lion and kill it with an electronic call, the part that I was on in Southern Colorado, you can't. So even though I had a mountain lion tag in my pocket, I couldn't shoot a lion 15 yards away on my own ranch that had come running into a call. But fortunately, I think it was about a month later, I got that same cat's tracks in the snow, turned my hounds out, treated it, and shot it with a recurve. So it ended up working out pretty good.
Now, speaking of that, what is your preferred method of predator hunting? I mean, do you like to run dogs? Do you like to call them, thermal hunt? Like, what's your preferred method?
Dylan, I don't have a favorite. I enjoy
all of it.
It's like a chess game. I enjoy shooting predators with a recurve. You know what I mean? I've shot fox, bobcats, coyotes, called in black bears, shot them. I enjoy all of it. I enjoy calling them in with mouth calls. I enjoy calling them with electronic calls. I enjoy using decoys for them. I enjoy night vision. I enjoy thermal. I enjoy running some predators where you can legally with dogs. You can probably hear my hounds in the background now. Actually, they're barking at something. But
they hear you talking about predators. They're
yeah,
like,
they probably
let's
hear
roll.
me say lion. But I mean, I couldn't say I had a favorite. When I was hunting Cotamundi and the Yucatan Peninsula, well, Cotamundis were my favorite. You know what I mean? When I'm hunting badgers and zeroing in on badgers, and those are my favorite. So I like them all.
That's cool, man. It's something that predator hunting doesn't get enough credit, I'll say. I mean, it's so fun. The opportunities are everywhere. I mean, you can hunt them anywhere you want, and a lot of times you can hunt them, year round. If not year round, you can hunt them. Definitely other times you can't be hunting other big game.
Right.
And so that predator hunting just doesn't get enough credit. And I was one that didn't get enough credit for years. And then you go out and do it a few times and you're like, dude, this is the most addicting thing I've ever done in my entire life. Like,
not to mention the management aspect.
Yeah. Now, okay, let's hit this for a minute. 'Cause you hear, I
know where you're going. I can't wait. Let's go. Let's
do it. Because I'm of the and everybody listening to this knows I work for Pope and Young as well. And they're like, well, hey, it's not a good management practice. You got to kill 80% of the population to actually make a difference. If not, you can actually help the population grow. And I'm like, yeah, but it's fun. Like, there's no doubt about that. Now I do understand asking yourself the fair chase ethical question of, am I just killing for fun or am I helping? But dude, I can't wrap my head around the idea that if I kill a coyote, am I not saving fawns? Like, you
100%.
have to be.
100% you are. And you're also pushing them. You're pushing those animals to areas where let them eat the calves on your neighbors. Then, you know what I mean? Like, it's if you don't manage them, and I love people. I've seen comments and posts from people, and I look up where they're from, and it's like, lives in, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or lives in, downtown New York, And it's like, what? So you really aren't around predators every day like I am. I mean, I've had bears rip the side of my chicken coop off and kill every chicken I've had. I've watched coyotes take down calves. I've watched them eat the back end out of a cow. I've flown with helicopters on ranches that had so much problem that they were losing 50% of their calf population to coyotes, where we killed, I think, 87 coyotes in like a 2-day period on one ranch. So to hear, I'll call them, let's just call a spade, people that don't know what they're talking about, and say, yeah, you're not managing the population. Well, where I'm doing it, I see an increase in the pheasant numbers. I see, geese and ducks that are sitting nests, and raccoons aren't raiding their nests at night and killing all the eggs. I see a difference. I could go out in certain areas and go, holy chowder, there's coyotes everywhere here. And then we shoot them and they're not. The ranch that I was talking about that we flew in Colorado with the helicopters, they went from losing tons of calves to almost none. So did we do a good thing? Yeah, we saved him tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost livestock. So The people that say that are maybe armchair biologists. I don't even know, but no, they certainly haven't managed a piece of property where trapping, calling, and managing predators, you can see it make a difference. Same thing with mountain lions. I can see when there's too many mountain lions, when they're starting to come in real close to the house, or, they're killing deer 50 yards from the house and things like that. Yeah, managing those animals makes a huge difference on prey animals.
Yeah. Well, and what you just said actually brings up a really good point. A lot of people, when they talk about different conservation aspects, they don't even consider raccoons. And I actually was just talking with one of my buddies who's a professional. He's a professional coyote guide. Like, it's what he does for a living, is takes people on coyote hunts. And he's like, I've killed a mess of coyotes in my lifetime. But if you really want to see an increase in your turkey population, start trapping for raccoons. Like, you want to really make a difference in your turkey population. He said, I think he said 17. He said, I trapped 17 raccoons in 2 nights on one of my properties. Like, that right there is going to save more turkeys than if I go out and coyote hunt for, 3 weeks. But so many people, like, we just see the big bad, teeth of a coyote, and we're like, well, these are killing all of our fawns, and these are killing all of our turkeys and our pheasants and our quail. Well, you got to look at littler predators too. And so many people don't,
No, Dylan, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's a guy in Texas, the biologist told him why he doesn't have turkeys on his place. And it's because every single feeder, he's got photos of like 20 to 25 raccoons. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Every feeder he has that are going off at the same time. So it's not like it's the same 25 coons moving from feeder to feeder.
Right.
We have that many. And so he was talking to the wildlife biologist that is there in Texas. The guy said, well, yeah, you can't have turkeys. You got way too many, nest predators. You know what I mean? You can't raise turkeys here. It's not like you're not gonna have wild turkeys in this area because of the number of raccoons. You're gonna have to manage your predators. So I think biologists that are in the field, and don't get me wrong, there's a huge difference between biologists that are hunters and biologists that sit behind a desk and biologists that are out in the field. There's a 9-day difference. Biologists that are in the field, that are hunters, that actively know what they're doing. I'm not talking about some man or woman that just popped out of college, that's never lived on a ranch, that's never predator hunted, that's never seen the difference in managing predators, getting something from a book and touting somebody else's opinion. I'm talking about people that actually hunt predators and see the difference. Yeah. You can definitely manage predators and make a huge difference in the prey populations.
Well, and you just raised the question of, okay, so are we agreeing that a wolf is going to kill a cow? Yes. Okay. So then by killing that wolf, am I not saving those calves? Like, yes. 100%. I mean, it's common sense. Now, I understand to an extent what they're talking about as far as, well, you're splitting up the group of coyotes, and you're creating a new hierarchy if you kill the lead dog and all this stuff like that. But you still have to act like I'm still eliminating something that's going to be killing my fawns, something that's going to be killing my calves. I'm still dwindling that number down. Now, for those, and what I find interesting is you raise the question, they say, well, you got to kill 80% of the population to really make a difference. And then you say, okay, 80% of the population into how big of a span? because I can 100% kill 80% of the population on my ground.
Yep.
Like if we're just looking at my, 300 acres, I
Right.
can 100% eliminate 80% of that population. Now, if we're talking nationwide, no. If we're talking, a mile by a mile, no, maybe not. I mean, if we're talking, so how big is that area? And they're like, well, we don't really know. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Like,
let me give you an example. The lions of Savo. Have you heard about those lions that were?
I have not.
There was a movie, The Ghost in the Darkness, talked about the
Oh,
lions.
yeah.
They were
Yeah.
man killers. They were, matter of fact, I think their skulls are in the Smithsonian Museum.
Yeah.
Not all lions are man killers.
Right.
Those were, and they were killing people. They had learned to hunt, kill, and eat people. Had they not killed those lions, they would have continued to eat people. So there's undisputable facts. Like I'll give you a prime example. A local rancher here called me and said, man, I haven't had coyote problems in the past killing calves, but we've got coyotes killing calves right now. Like they're killing calves. They killed one yesterday, killed one today, blah, blah, blah. Can you get out here? Blah, blah, blah. No problem. So I went out. Now, what was happening, and the rancher explained perfectly, and I've got the same thing, or had the same thing here. When you've got a cow, maybe she's not a good mother, maybe it's a bad year on grass, and you drop hay to feed the cows, okay? Some mothers will leave their calves, and they'll go eat the hay. And the hay may be dropped half a mile from where they had that calf. Any cattlemen know what I'm talking about. A mile from where they dropped that calf. You know what I mean? She will leave that calf and go eat the hay. Coyotes learn behavior. So they had a pair of coyotes, and all coyotes aren't calf killers. I will 100% tell you that. But this pair of coyotes had effectively learned to literally, when they would feed, figure out which cows were leaving their babies behind, they would come in and they would kill that calf dead. So when I went in there, and it took me a couple days, see what they were doing, call them in. When I killed those coyotes, they stopped losing calves. So right there, the lions of Savo, the coyotes that learn to kill, calves. It is not only naive, it's foolish to think you cannot manage predators and can't change behavior. If you get rid of the ones that aren't doing what you want them to do, you see what I'm saying? Like you're protecting prey animals. So there's two examples. Look up the lions of Savo. That's a great one for anybody that's watching or going, oh, I don't think you can really. Oh, really? You think all African lions are man killers? Nope. But some of them can become an issue. And if you don't kill them, they're going to become a bigger issue.
Now, is there a difference? Is there a difference in the ones who go out and predator hunt for fun and just they're going to go out a couple nights and try to shoot a couple dogs, whatever, and those who are really going out and trapping and running dogs and doing it thermals and they're really trying to put an emphasis on getting rid of these predators? Do you think that makes a difference in the conversation of, well, yeah, we're making a difference, or yeah, we're hurting them? I mean, if we go out a couple times and just, shoot at whatever comes in, maybe, and do those people create an issue? But the ones who are really putting forth a cognizant effort to eliminate the population, is there a difference there, or does anything help, period?
I'm not going to say create an issue, because I'm a fan of anybody hunting anything. So that would be like, do the guys that sky bust ducks educate ducks? Yeah, they do. But do the guys that go out and just have fun? That's great. More power to them. I think it's great. I support anybody that's out there doing any type of hunting with any weapon. As long as they're doing it legally and ethically, great. That's awesome. Do they educate a lot of coyotes and make them more difficult sometimes? Yeah, yes, they do. And does any management help to a degree? Yeah, I think if you've got a guy that's like in the case of the bear that was killing chickens, if you've got a specific animal and it's killing chickens, or it's learned to effectively, kill your house cats or kill this, kill that, then that animal needs to be taken out. That's why the Division of Wildlife, no matter what the state, if they have an animal that's killed a person, a lot of times they're like, oh, we need to take this one out. It's a problem. You know what I mean? Same with alligators down in Florida. There's, are all alligators actively hunting people? No. But are there some that have done it and then they try and kill them? 100%. The ones that are acting aggressive are doing that. So I'm a fan of anybody predator hunting, no matter what their reason, whether it's, whether they're doing some damage control predator hunting like I do, or whether they're just out there having fun. I think it's all great, and it's a great sport. It's fun. And yeah, I think you're saving a lot of animals in the process.
Well, and it's such a good way to get people out first and foremost, because there's so many. Like, you're just going to have fun. I mean, they're going to see action, especially if you're thermal hunting. They can sit and watch through thermals, and they're just going to have a good time. But also, there's those guys who they've got an AR sitting at home that they bought for whatever reason, and they've never used it. I mean, it's sitting in a closet, and now you're giving them something to do with it. It's not going to collect dust anymore. It's not just to take out to the range twice a year. Like, you're saying, hey, here's something you can do with that gun that's going to benefit the ecosystem. It's going to benefit our deer herds. It's going to benefit all the animals that you say, save the animals. It's going to benefit all of those. So to me, it's almost a bridge between non-hunters and hunters, because for the non-hunter that says, well, don't kill the deer, they're cute and sweet. Okay, what about coyote hunting? Because by coyote hunting, we're protecting the deer that you think are cute and sweet. There's not many people that disagree and say, no, don't kill the coyotes. They're sweet. We love them. You know what I mean?
No, you got a good point, but I will tell you one that was on my page a while ago, and I've learned to just ignore. You got to ignore people because they're going to, put some ridiculous stuff on there. But there was a woman one time that put, can't we just figure out how to give the coyotes birth control instead of killing them? Now, this was on my page, and it was awesome. And so I couldn't help myself. I tried to ignore a lot of them, but I wrote back and I said, ma'am, if you'll hold the coyote, I'll put the condom on him. And so I had so many, I think over 800 people liked my comment. I had, one of the editors, Peterson's Hunting, was like, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. It's just, and I don't blame people for being naive. I don't know a lot about a lot of subjects. I'm not going to go in and start talking about finance, for example, about things I don't know anything about. But what kills me is when people do that and they start making hard opinions or trying to sway people about something they know nothing about.
Right.
That's my biggest issue, is get educated. And then if you want to have an opinion on something, go ahead. You know what I mean? But just say, hey, this is my opinion. I've never hunted a coyote. I don't know anything about coyotes. I don't live where there's coyotes, but here's my thoughts. That's fine. Yeah. But I would almost like to see people have to clarify it,
Well, I'm so glad that our North American model for wildlife conservation is not based off of opinion. It's not based off what animals we think are cute or not. It's science-backed. What is going to help the populations of these animals the most? Now, they do make some really stupid choices. They make some things that I disagree with. But like you said, I'm also not a scientist. I don't understand all of the things and so for me, it's hard to sit back. Now, there's some things that you can wade through and say, this is a terrible idea, even though this is what, the state of Oklahoma decided to release pen-raised deer that had shown immunity to CWD into the wild, because they'll repopulate and those deer will be immune to CWD. You can read that type of stuff and say, okay, this is just mental, like you're dumb. But there's also a lot of things like that are put out there. And I'm like, I don't know any better. So I'm going to support the science that you're saying supports this. But there's just so many people that want to make these decisions for our wildlife based off of emotion. And, because you get cute, cuddly feelings when you see a raccoon in the field and you think it's adorable. So many people want to make decisions based off of that rather than what does the science and the research show for the population and for the management of this species.
Right. The most frightening thing, no matter what you hunt, or actually no matter what you do, is people that are trying to get things put on, ballots and make them ballot initiatives. Sadly, some states, Colorado, for example, they tried to vote down mountain lion hunting with a lot of false information by getting enough signatures to have it put on the ballot. That's scary to me, because that is management based on emotion. General public that's not educated on predators, as opposed to letting game wardens have input, wildlife biologists have input, you know what I mean?
Right.
Even mountain lions have input, people that know and see these animals and understand what's going on. So that's, to me, that is way smarter management than throwing some ballot initiative and letting people vote on whether it's cute or not, to your point.
Yeah. Well, and to an extent, you can't blame them because they were raised to be stupid. But like my kid, I've got a 13-year-old daughter, and I shot a coon in the backyard, and she freaks out crying. She's like, "No, Dad, it's a cute raccoon." And I said, "Okay, well, the next one that comes by, we'll let it live, and we'll see how long your cat lives outside. Like, we'll see how the raccoon treats your cat." She said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, that raccoon's going to get the cat food before your cat does. I can promise you that. And that raccoon will beat your cat in a fight. I can promise you that. Like, I'm just giving you a heads up." And she's like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, you think they're cute and cuddly, but it will kill your kittens. I promise." And she was like, "Okay, kill them all." Like, but so many people,
a disease, all the other
100%.
When they get overpopulated are issues. Those are issues that are related to often overpopulation.
Yeah. You want to talk about disease? Everybody, anytime I'm at a show, like at ATA, I'll have people come up and they'll say, "Oh, dude, I love Tucker stories. It's my son. He's 6. He's wild." You would get just a kick out of him. The first time I ever had Chuck Adams on the show, my son, he was probably 3 at the time, walks across the back of the screen starch naked. And I didn't notice it. I was just still talking, and Chuck just starts laughing. And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "You got a naked kid behind you." And I'm like, "Oh." I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's my son."
Yeah, thanks for that. That's his debut.
Yeah, but he comes up to the back of the house. This is just, I don't know, 7-8 days ago, and he bangs on the back door. And I come to the back door, and dude's just holding a possum, just not a possum. I'm sorry, an armadillo. He's holding an armadillo, and that armadillo's just trying to bite his face off, And I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing?" He's like, I found an armadillo and I caught it." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let's go put it back before your mom sees." And I'm like, "Because she's going to freak out, especially since you've brought this thing in the threshold of the house." And so she immediately starts Googling, and she's like, "Dylan, did you know that armadillos are the only animal in existence to carry leprosy?" And I'm like, "Well, I did know that. I didn't want you to know that."
Right. I wish you hadn't Googled
it. Yeah. So then he went out and just started following it around for a couple hours. And I'm like, "Son, just leave it alone." And he just kept walking, chasing it. But anyways, he's wild. Now, before we get into, I want to get into some calling tips and tricks, how to kill more coyotes. But what's some of the craziest, other than the mountain lion coming in 15 yards, what's some of the craziest predator hunts you've had?
Oh man, I've called in grizzlies, was calling, this is embarrassing. Actually, I think we put it on YouTube because my editor thought it was so funny. I was on Kodiak, Alaska. And, the main thing I was there for was hunting Sitka black-tailed deer with a recurve. But we were also, I wanted to call some of the fox in, and, as a non-resident, you shoot 2. So I had called in a beautiful red fox with a mouth call, and the captain of the boat, he was a transporter, and I would tell him, "Just drop me off the beach here. I want to go call, foxes in with a mouth call." And he'd say, "Fred, man, the biggest bears in the world are here. Like, keep your eye open for brown bears." And I'm like, "Oh, I'll be all right. Pretty heads up around bears, and I won't call in areas where a bear can get up on me too quick, and where I can react, blah blah blah." So my editor was with me, and he was also filming on that trip. But I set up in this little rock. It was, kind of angled down, but we were on the edge of the beach, and there was a steep cliff on our left, and in front of us was the beach, and behind us was the beach, and on the right was the, ocean. And so I set up, and my thought there was, man, if anything comes, on our 6, what I mean? My editor will see it. He's going to be checking our back a lot because he didn't want a brown bear to slip up on him, and I'll be looking in front of us, and there's no way a brown bear can come down this super steep cliff. So I started calling with my mouth call. Everything's going great. And then all of a sudden, all I see is fur, and I hear growling, and this black just comes around the edge of the rock. Obviously, it runs straight down the cliff, comes around, and it's like, I mean, it's a foot to 2 feet right in my face.
Oh
and
my Lord.
I was like, I'm dead. Like, I and I jump backwards, scared to death. And I jump backwards away from both my bow and my gun, which, not really what you want to do. My editor's like, yeah, way to cover us there, buddy. But it
you had our back.
So much. Yeah. It startled me so much. I jumped backwards. So it was a black color face of a red fox. So, they call it cross fox, but this black fox had run down the cliff, come around, and it didn't bolt at me. Like, it sat there and was like, it's mad. And I was like, oh, so then I ended up grabbing my shotgun. I went for the recurve first, was kind of trying to shoot it, but then it started to go. So then I grabbed the shotgun, blah, blah, blah. But it goes up the cliff. So that was a wild one because it was I can't say, I've called bobcats in super close and bears in close, but yeah, 12 inches, 24 inches. That's right up there with one of the closest. So that was really cool. Wolves, super, super awesome. Had a badger come running right up on me. Had a buddy start screaming when I was mouth calling. Had a bobcat duck under we were sitting at a cedar tree, and it came underneath the cedar branches, literally like right on top of him. And he had to show me where the bobcat spun out because I just saw a flash of gray. He flipped out over that one. So there's always, there's always some fun. Raccoons, when they come in angry, wow, man, that's an awesome one. They come in like black bears. So there's been some really fun one. Dingoes. I had a leopard come in one time, and what scared me the most, I was calling for jackals. Actually, I wasn't intentionally calling for leopard, calling for jackals, and shot a jackal with my recurve. Thought that was super cool, but I'd never seen anything come into a call without me seeing it, and it was generally open, like it was grassy. It was brush around, but I put the call in a little open area, and I did not see the leopard until it stood up to go away from the call. And I was like, man, I got goosebumps, right? Yeah, like, dude. I was like, holy chowder, that was unreal. So yeah, I've had some really cool, unique experiences, dingoes, coming in and to be like, just neat experiences, stuff with different animals. And, I'm certainly, what do they say? Jack of all trades, master of none. Man, I'm not an expert in any of it. I'm still learning about coyotes and still learning about bobcats, still learning about fox. And, I love it all, but I like learning a little tiny bit about a whole lot of different things, just to learn a little bit about that species and, what they do or the damage that, dingoes can cause. You know what I mean? They like ripping the calves' ears. You know what I mean? They'll chew on calves' ears over there. They run like a Brangus. You know what I mean? It's partially Brahma, partially Angus. And, the guy was telling me how bad they do, like it impacts their sale value when they take them to sale. If the ears are all ripped up, in tatters, from dingoes that have ripped the ears. So it's fun learning a little bit about different predators and some of the issues from human predator encounters in different areas.
Yeah. Now that's something, and the reason I asked that question is because predator hunting gives you some just wild experiences. Like you see things and hear things that you're not going to hear or see otherwise because you're putting yourself in a predicament to see those things. Like if you paint that picture, you're literally trying to get that coyote or wolf or whatever to come in to finish off a dead animal. Like that coyote is hearing a rabbit squirming for its life. So it's coming in. Yeah. It's coming in excited. It's coming in attack mode. It's coming in, or you're coming in, you get them coming in just furious and they're doing things like that you don't see otherwise. And it offers such cool learning experiences. It offers such cool just life experience of seeing these animals do things that most people are never going to see these animals do. Yep. And it's so cool.
It is, whether it's deer. I've had deer attack calls. I've had hogs come in that I didn't expect to, attack the call. I had a mule deer not only attack the call, but then it ran stomping at my buddy, my cameraman, I thought it was hysterical. He's yelling, shoot it. Like he thought he was not like he can't shoot a mule deer, but it's pretty funny. I've had whitetails run up the calls. Owls pick up the call and fly off with them. And, just it's like you said, I'm agreeing with you. It's a neat way to experience wildlife in a different way. And some of those experiences are some of my favorite stories. I mean, it's some of the favorite memories. I was calling it a black bear here in Colorado for a muzzleloader guy. I didn't honestly it's, if I'm being honest, 10%, you know what I mean? If I call the 10 bears, maybe 1 out of 10 will come in, if you pick the right bear and right situation. But, so I didn't know for sure if the bear would come in, but I saw a bear. It was too far for him to shoot with a muzzleloader. I said, well, if we get into that brush, odds are we're going to spook him because we could see him on the side of this hill. I said, let me try and call it in, we'll see what happens. So I said, just set up right next to me. And so I start calling and this bear, like literally he looks and he comes. And I mean, this bear's just barreling through the brush and we lose sight of him. And when he pops out again, I don't even know. He's probably 40, 50 yards and he's coming right at us. And, the guy's like, what do we do? Stop him. And I'm like, shoot him. Like he's coming, like shoot the bear. Like he's coming. And this guy shoots with this muzzleloader and he even told me, he said, I just shot to scare it. Like he should have just smoked the bear, but he was so scared. He just literally shot the gun more to scare the bear. Well, muzzleloaders, he was shooting an old percussion and, probably triple F or double F. Smoke belches out of the friggin', and neither of us could see. Like, I can't see. Like, it's one of those misty kind of mornings, and then we got smoke everywhere. I lose sight of the bear, and I'm kind of like, oh, this is going to hurt. He's going to run us right over.
Now you're just waiting for a bear to come through the smoke.
He's coming right at him. So I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt. And I'm kind of, and the smoke clears, bear's gone. I'm like, did you get him? And he's like, no, I didn't get him. Like, I just shot.
Are you crazy?
Oh, yeah. But it was like, man, and I've had similar, where I've called in stuff where I was like, I wanted to call it in, but now I'm kind of going, maybe that wasn't the best idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah, stuff like that's fun.
There are very few things that I have with me every time I'm in the outdoors. Whether I am upland hunting, deer hunting, elk hunting, just out shooting my bow, out checking trail cameras, very few things that are always with me. One thing that I always have with me is my binocular harness. And I searched the world for what I felt to be the best binocular harness. In my opinion, there's a fine line in binocular harnesses. Either you get a lot of space for everything you need, but they're big, bulky, and heavy, or they're super streamlined and I just don't have space for everything that I want to have on my chest. Alaska Guide Creations makes phenomenal harnesses. Guys, I wear them all the time. I wear my harness probably every day at some point in my day. And so comfortability is important to me. The way that it stays put where I want it is important to me, but also having enough compartments and being able to move things around modularly to fit it where I want it is also really important to me. I want my rangefinder in a certain place. I want my knife in a certain place. I want my binos to fold out in a certain way. And with Alaska Guide Creations, they have a full line of binocular harnesses that you can make exactly how you want them. I can put different pockets right where it's going to work best for me and my system. Guys, Alaska Guide Creations is the best, hands down, in my opinion, harness you can get, and take it from a guy who pretty much lives in them. Go check out Alaska Guide Creations for your next and your last bino harness. So let's talk coyote hunting, because that's, easily accessible to 90% of the people listening to this podcast.
Yeah, they're in 49 of the 50 states, and there's probably one swimming to Hawaii right now.
Yeah, they're on their way. So if somebody has never coyote hunted before, and listen, most people are their predator hunting experiences are limited to they're on a deer hunt, and they see a coyote, and they quickly become a coyote hunter. Like, right. That's where their experience stops. But this is the time of year, man. It's such a cool opportunity because turkey season hasn't opened. All your deer seasons are closed. So unless you're traveling somewhere, coyotes are pretty much the only thing you've got left. Unless you've got some really late, bird seasons or whatever. But there's some phenomenal coyote hunting right now. So if somebody's listening to this and they've never coyote hunted, where do you start?
Man, great question. That's an open-ended question. Some people want to dip their toe, and a mouth call is fine. You can get a mouth call for, $50, under $50, so that's probably the most inexpensive way to dip your toe into it and see what calling's all about. The e-calls are huge. The problem is you got to you get what you pay for. So, I see some people like, oh man, look at this. I bought a $60 electronic call. And I'm like, oh, you might as well throw that away. You get because the speaker's cheap and it doesn't sound right. And, there's so many, you're giving yourself a handicap. So, sometimes I advise guys, if you want to just dip your toe or see if you enjoy it, get a mouth call. If you want to jump in, get a good electronic call. And I mean a good one, one with dual speakers. You know what I mean? To get a good call now, you're usually talking a few $100, to be honest. Western Recreation has some great ones. So does Fox Pro has some great ones, but don't go for the cheapest call because it would be like, buying the absolute cheapest gun you could probably buy. It's just not gonna function or perform as well. And then the biggest mistakes, I guess it's as easy to talk about the biggest mistakes that people make. First thing is, if the volume goes up to 40, for example, most guys, if low's good, high's better, and they'll run the volume to 40. And that distorts the sound on the speaker. It doesn't sound natural. And, they end up not only educating, but spooking a lot of dogs. And a lot of people, why do coyotes hold up? Well, they're either educated, somebody's called them in before, or something about your setup. Or a lot of times your call didn't sound quite right. You know what I mean? It was distorted, didn't sound right. It maybe brought them in from a ways, but as they got closer, they were like, no, that doesn't sound right at all.
Yeah.
I've equated it to telling people, have you ever heard a party off in the distance? You know what I mean? You're like, oh man, that sounds like I can hear music. You know what I mean? That sounds cool. And as you're getting closer, you're like, man, that's punk rock music and it's really bad. So that's not the kind of party I want to join.
Yeah. That's in an old folks home. I'm not going there.
Yeah. So, no offense, those like punk rock music or whatever it's called now, but it's, as you get closer, when you're far off, you might be able to tell it's music. As you get closer, you might be able to tell what genre it is, and as you get closer, even you might be able to start hearing the words or the lyrics. Well, that's similar to, a coyote, bobcat, whatever. So I tell people, if you can hear it, a predator can hear it a long ways off. One of the best gauges is dogs, farm dogs, you know what I mean? Rural dogs. When you hear dogs barking after you turn on your call, and that dog's half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, mile and a half, that dog is barking because it has heard your call. So know that, I see people that'll also make a big difference between your sets. You know what I mean? Travel a little distance. You know what I mean? You're a lot of times you're calling the same animals that have already heard your call. You know what I mean? And if you didn't call one in here, you're not going to go 300 yards and all of a sudden magically call one in. A lot of people waste their time doing that. So a quality, either a mouth call, a quality e-call, volume down lower than you think you would want it, a good distance between sets, paying attention to the little things. I tell everybody, coyote hunting is about a whole lot of small percentages that add up to your overall success. So being a good shot with your rifle, a lot of people don't realize you've got about a 5-inch, margin of error on a coyote chest, from hitting him in the spine to getting him far enough in the, in the lungs, besides the brisket that's non-fatal. So you have about 2.5 inches high, 2.5 inches low. If you can't shoot, a 5-inch circle at 200 yards, don't take a 200-yard shot. If you can't shoot that at 400, don't take a 400-yard shot. You know what I mean? Understand you have a 2.5-inch margin of error. So, a lot of people brag and say, oh man, I'm shooting an MOA gun, you know what I mean? Or minute angle gun. So at 100 yards, that's basically, you got a 1-inch group. At 200 yards, that's a 2-inch group. Well, take a gun that's an MOA gun, you know what I mean? Or a lot of people say sub MOA. If it's sub MOA, it's even better. But if you're shooting a gun that you can shoot a 2-inch group with at 200 yards, you've already given yourself a 2-inch margin of error. You only have a 1/2 inch to play with. And then you add excitement, adrenaline, you know what I mean? Maybe wind. Yeah. It's super easy. Most people miss coyotes. I've guided coyote hunters. I've gone on coyote contests, all kinds of stuff. Your average guy misses way more coyotes than they kill. And a lot of it's because they think they have a lot more room to kill that coyote than they actually do. So, make sure you have equipment that's set up for it. A shotgun's a great option too if you want to shoot close, depending on where you're at, where you're calling. An accurate rifle. I like a CDS, I shoot a loop-pulled with a custom dial system because I can literally dial the exact yardage and hold that on. So if that coyote's 350 yards, I dial 350. I'm not trying to guess, oh man, my bullet's going to drop how far at this, no, I just range him and dial it. Then I'm confident in my shot. Setting up, a lot of this stuff is generally basic, but I spend more time finding the right spot to call from than I do actually calling.
So what are you looking for in that right spot?
No, good question, man. I want, if I can have a natural barrier that'll force the animal to come in the way I want, and you're talking about coyotes. So if I have a river, a highway, maybe even a farmhouse, something that, a super deep ditch, a river, something that I can kind of, I know the coyote's not going to come from this guy's front yard. In other words, he's got dogs and people or whatever, or I've got a super big cliff over here. I know the coyote's not going to run down the cliff. So when I can use natural obstacles to help funnel them, I will. Little things I'm looking for, man, the things we've all heard, of course you want the wind, but the wind doesn't have to be straight for me. I'm fine with it, wind, quartering at a hard angle, depending on where I'm trying to call these coyotes from. I try and get the call away from me a ways if I'm using an e-call. If I'm using a mouth call, I try and get tucked in to where they can't see me, because I'm going to have to at some point probably put that call down, pick up my rifle, get tucked in. In a perfect scenario, I've got the wind. I've got the sun at my back. So it's in the animal's eyes, not mine. I'm in the shade, and everything else is I can see. I've got some decent visibility. I'll use 2-track roads, river edges, fields, little openings, anything I can. I like a visual attractant. I mean, the more things that you can fool on an animal's senses, especially a coyote, gives them more confidence. I've used Montana Decoy's coyote decoy. I've used the decoys that spin around. I've used just a feather. I mean, literally, you can take, there's almost always some type of breeze. Take a turkey feather, take a, domestic feather, take a whatever, tie it on a piece of string, check legality, on the type of feather you can use, even a fake feather. But, a chicken feather is great, but tie it on a piece of string, fishing line, tie it out there near your call or just somewhere the animal can see it, and it'll be out there moving in the breeze. So if you can fool their ears and you can fool their eyes, by seeing something, and then you can fool their scent by them not either smelling you or having an attractant. There's so many little things, but yeah. So my perfect setup, like I said, I'm in the shade. I've got good cover so I can move or not get spotted as an animal's coming in. Sun at my back, and wind in my favor. Those are some of the things. And then, some things are hard to teach, Dylan, and everybody wants a magic bullet, but the fact is, some of it's experience and learning and watching, maybe people that have done it more, or knowing your area, like, where is a coyote going to be bedded, or where's he probably going to be at in the time of day you're there. So I'm really careful about trying not to spook coyotes as I get into an area, especially if I'm hunting an open area. I've used horses, e-bikes, walking, all kinds of things to slip into an area where I'm not going to get spotted. I'll try not to silhouette myself too much. You know what I mean? Going over the top of a ridge where every coyote within a 2-mile radius is like, yeah, this person right there coming in.
Look at this guy.
If I hear a call, probably not going to come in. So
yeah,
there's little things like that. I'm trying to get into the area as quietly, keep the wind, not drifting into the air where I think the dog's at, but knowing the area, sometimes scouting an area first, seeing where you're seeing the majority of the tracks, where the coyote's hanging out, talking to the local rancher or farmer. You can get huge information. Like, I always see a coyote hanging out, over in that brush pile.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm not going to walk through that brush pile when I go set up.
And they're going to give you good information because they want them dead.
Once you get them.
Yeah, they want them dead.
Yeah. So there's a few little things. I also, when it comes to making the shot too, I'm a firm believer in a rest. Man, I've watched a lot of people shoot and miss, and I have too, with a monopod or even a bipod, because sometimes it's not as stable. It's heavier, but I shoot a bog tripod. You know what I mean? Man, it gives me a lot more stable rest. I can pivot it. I can, it's comfortable. It holds the gun for me. I can clamp the gun in so I can be hands free. You know what I mean? And slide into the gun when I need, but I'm more comfortable. Pick a comfortable spot. You know what I mean? I'm sure you can relate to this. How many times have you sat down and gone, man, this is great. Man, I can sit here with my back against this tree forever. And 2 minutes later, you're like, oh, this is a horrible spot.
This sucks.
I got a hickory nut in my butt cheek, and I didn't realize that tick was there. So, I try and pick a spot or take equipment with me. You know what I mean? Some of the old, packs with pads on them, even turkey vests are great. That allow me to sit still longer. And along those lines, I see a lot of people that don't set up as long because they don't have the right equipment. They're cold. I've had people I've literally taken and 10, 15 minutes into a set, they're like, oh man, I'm cold. I need, it's like, well, you might want some good gear. You know what I mean? Like, I love the fact that and not to overly plug something, but Blocker's got Predator gear. You know what I mean? That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's well thought out. The pockets are insulated. Literally you put a hand warmer in there and it keeps you warmer. It's got deep pockets, got a hood. Make sure you have everything from good boots, good clothing, so you can sit longer. I mean, a lot of people are like, man, how'd you manage to kill so many coyotes last week? Or how'd you come out here and kill coyotes when we can't? It's like, man, I hunted all day. You know what I mean? It's like life, right? Whoever works the hardest, usually wins. So, if you work the hardest and you work smart, man, you're going to do well in dang near everything you do. So, having the right equipment's huge. I couldn't sit or hunt as long if I had crappy boots or crappy clothing, a crappy call. I wouldn't do very well. A gun that didn't shoot accurately, without ammunition I had shot and tested. You know what I mean? There's so many small little things. And again, that goes back to that 5 or 10%. People say, what? How do you shoot more coyotes? It's like, well, let's say 5% of it is the call. 5% of it is how loud you pay the call. 5% of it is where you set up. 5% of it is, can you shoot your equipment accurately? 5% of it is, if the coyote shows up, can you shoot it? 5% of it is the wind direction. 5% of it is the weather. 5% of it is the moon phase, if you're hunting at night or hunting in the daytime, or when you choose to hunt. But you take all those up, and if you tilt as many of those variables in your favor as you can, you're going to do really well.
So that raises the question. You talk about sitting for a long time, and you talked about distance between sets. How long are you sitting at a set? Like, you're not going to sit and run your call for 2 hours at one place. So how long are you trying to gauge, like, all right, there's no dogs going to work into this, let's move on?
Great question. A lot of variables there too, and not to be confusing, but if I'm hunting in Alabama or Florida where the trees are thick and the call's not carrying as far, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Because I know that, the call at the volume I'm playing it at, it's not carrying out there a mile. You know what I mean? It's carrying out less than that. If I'm hunting Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, in places or parts of Texas where there's nothing to stop that sound, you know how well sound carries across the lake, for example. If I know that call's carrying out there further, man, I'm going to, I may sit for 25, 30 minutes. Am I, is my goal to try and shoot as many coyotes as I can, or to, some of it depends on how much country I have to hunt. The majority, I would say 70%, somewhere along there, I'd have to look at, I've kept a lot of records, but 70% of the coyotes I've shot have probably come in within the first 10 minutes to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Now,
I would agree with that.
Are you still killing coyotes after that? Sure you are. Have I killed some out of that? So yeah, out of 10 coyotes, can I kill 3 dogs if I stay longer than that? Yes, I can. But am I in a coyote contest? Am I trying to put as much fur in the shed as I can? Have I got, only a little bit of country where I know I'm only going to make 2 sets? Then I'm going to sit longer. You know what I mean? What's the wind? Is there wind? Wind causes a call not to carry as far, especially in the direction you want it. It's going to carry that sound more downwind, you know what I mean, than upwind. So if I'm in, and I love hunting in snow, I love hunting in wind, you know what I mean? I love hunting in rain a lot of times, especially a light rain. Those also reduce how far that call carries. So, again, those are going to be shorter sets for me. So a lot of it depends on weather conditions, where I'm hunting, and the terrain.
Does killing one dog help you kill more dogs? And what I mean by that is, if you've got a dead dog on the ground, is the scent of that dog going to help you? Is it going to hurt you? How do you think that plays? I mean,
now if they're downwind, they're gonna smell you too. They may smell that coyote, they're gonna smell you too. Now, leaving a dead coyote, if you're talking about a set where you're trying to shoot multiple dogs and you shoot a coyote out there at 150 yards, you know what I mean? And you decide to stay for another 10 minutes. If you call in another dog, yeah, that coyote scent, you know what I mean? I've seen that not hurt them. In fact, sometimes they'll go toward that other coyote. Sometimes they'll try and race the other coyote. Depends on what time of year, what time of year it is too, but there's a lot of, I tell people, don't get discouraged. A lot of people go out and have given up on predator hunting because they went out and maybe had a bad experience. So they went out and they didn't call in a coyote. And I'm like, man, I do it all the time. And I hunt, whether I'm hunting public land, private land, whatever, I average, a coyote for every 3 sets. And I know what I'm doing, to a degree. I still got a lot to learn. But, I tell guys, if you call in, you may have to make 10 sets depending on how many other people have called the area or whatever, to call in coyote if you're doing everything good and depending on where you're at. So don't be discouraged. Like when it happens and when you see it, you're going to be like, oh, okay, this is awesome. And you're going to learn, take notes for yourself, try and learn every time, because just like you and me have talked a lot about bow hunting too, you're constantly learning, right? That goes in the old memory banks like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I learned something there. Oh, man, I'm glad I switched that call up midway because that coyote didn't come in for this, but when I switched it up to, a sexual call or a vocalization call, whatever, or a curiosity call, man, it came running in. So maybe I need to do that more because maybe there's times I'm calling and I didn't see that coyote and I should have switched it up before. So, a prime example, and we actually caught this on video. I've used it in predator seminars before as an example. I was hunting in Nebraska. Rancher kept after me for like a while. He's like, Fred, please come out here and shoot some of these coyotes. I got way too many coyotes. Please shoot some of the coyotes. I was like, all right, well, I wasn't able to go for a while after he asked me, but I showed up and me and my buddy went out and we snuck up on this beautiful little brushy draw. Like we were seeing coyotes scat, in the 2 tracks, you know what I mean? There were tracks around. It was like, I'm like, there is a coyote in this draw for sure. And we're going to set up and video and it's going to be awesome. So my cameraman gets set up with his tripod and camera because I'm trying to video stuff. So it's even tougher. You know what I mean? I've got to have a really good setup. So, set the call out, and I started with a rabbit in distress. And we're sitting there and all of a sudden, and I think Jake spotted it first, but he's like, there's 3 coyotes. And I'm like, oh, where? He's like, they're running away. And I look up and I look at the glasses and these coyotes, we have the wind in our favor. We have sun in our back. There's no way they heard or saw us coming in. These coyotes heard the rabbit distress call. They're running away from us, looking back over their shoulders. So I stopped the call. I switched it to a puppy in distress and I played it again. And all of a sudden, literally all 3 dogs on video, they're like, "Rrr." They turn around, they start looking at us, and here they come. Now, it would be a really cool story if I could tell you I shot all 3 coyotes. Fact is, I only got 1 out of 3. But I got educated to the fact that I thought nobody had played a rabbit in distress. I usually don't play it. I very rarely play rabbit in distress now because so many people do. But I assumed nobody had hunted it. Those coyotes hadn't heard a rabbit in distress call. I couldn't figure out why they were running from it. When I ran into the rancher, I'm like, hey, man, we had some coyotes do something weird today. Have you had anybody out here calling? And he's like, oh, Fred, I basically, I've called a bunch of people, asked them out, and apparently some boys from the high school came out last weekend. And I'm like, did they kill any? He said, no, they said they shot at some, but they never killed one. And I'm like, there you go. Old memory banks. Literally on video, we have 3 coyotes running from a rabbit in distress. However, when we stopped it and switched the call and played it again, the same 3 coyotes that ran away for no reason heard a call they hadn't heard, and it caused them to come back. And I was like, wow, that's unreal. So, there's so many little things you learn while you're coyote hunting. So I tell beginning guys, man, do what I do. Like, I didn't just step out and go bow hunting one day. I watched I read Fred Bear's field notes. I watched Fred Bear's World of Hunting. I tried to learn and emulate what somebody that knew a lot more about bow hunting, did. There's a ton of great predator hunters out there. There's a ton of stuff available for people to look at. Your information. There's magazines. There's all kinds of great, social media and stuff where you can see and learn and apply. And some things may not really apply. If you're hunting, Canada versus Florida, well, some things may be different. General rules are kind of the same, but you're gonna learn a little bit. But I tell people, watch what people are doing in your area, and learn what happens when you call. If you're calling in snow, for example, and a lot of people don't call in snow, I have an advantage a lot of times in the snow of making a loop around my set, figure out if I call that in something I didn't see. If I messed up, if a coyote slipped in behind me, if he's running in and all of a sudden hit my scent or spotted me and turned around and running off, well, then I've just been educated and I've learned a little bit.
Now that raises the question, how do you even decide what call to start using and why? Like at different areas, what all plays into what call am I going to use?
That's another great question. And it's a very long-winded answer, but I'll try and give you the cliff notes. In the spring, I don't use food calls because there's food everywhere. Coyotes are fat and happy in the spring. They have got baby rabbits, baby birds, baby deer, grasshoppers. They're eating berries. A coyote's life in the spring and even summer sometimes is pretty easy. That's when they're putting on weight. They're fat. They're having a pretty easy life. A lot of times they won't come in to food calls at that time. You know what I mean? Like a dying rabbit. They're like, yeah, I'm full. I've been eating every day for the last week. I'm good. You know what I mean? But they may come in to a territorial type call. You know what I mean? So another coyote howl, puppy whines, things like that, if they think there's a dog in the area. So I'll switch it up and play different calls, different times of year, because I know what the coyotes are doing. Now, in the winter, let's say it's dead of winter. I'll just take two polar opposites. Dead of winter, just like us, they have to increase their caloric intake. They need to eat more, you know what I mean, to keep everything going. You know what I mean? Not just to stay alive, to stay warm. They need to increase their calories. So food's super important, and it's not nearly as easy to come by. So, in those time of years, a lot of times I'll play a food call. I play the rabbit call less and less, very rarely now, because so many people are predator hunting. Now everybody and their brother seems like they've got some type of e-call and they're out there playing it, and everybody goes to, the rabbit distress call. So there's a lot of coyotes out, across the country that are educated to that call, but they haven't heard maybe a snowshoe. Maybe they haven't heard a chicken in distress, but they're in rural areas and they've killed chickens, but they haven't heard chicken in distress. Just sounds they haven't heard before, bird sounds, I have a lot of luck with, bird sounds, mouse squeaks, things like that. So depending on the time of year, I'll switch up. I know we're running out of time, but I'll switch up and use different calls based on the time of year and based on what the coyotes are doing.
So this time of year, like if somebody's listening to this and they say, I'm going to go give this a shot, what's your go-to number one call for this time of year?
Coyotes are pairing up right now. If they're not already paired up, they're pairing up all over the country. So, I use more vocalizations right now. I use vocalizations, whether that's puppy in distress, whether that's, coyote calls, howls, challenge barks, especially if I set up, near where I know there's a pair, you know what I mean? Their territorial challenge bark works out really well. So a lot of that stuff, howls, challenge barks, puppies, that's the best thing to use right now, because it's starting to warm up all over, here in Colorado at, 5,000 to 7,000 feet, we're starting to get grass. Robins are all over and coyotes are pairing up. And they're hooking up. So they'll be popping out some babies here in a couple months. So that's what I find I have best luck with right now.
Yeah. Now, what all do you, I see that you have,
it worked out.
Yeah. I see that you have 743 coyotes behind you.
Yeah.
Do you still do what?
It was a good year.
That was just this year?
Oh, yes, sir.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, I got them to the freezer, so we usually work on them. The bobcats aren't, but the coyotes are. And then we went out 3 weeks ago, and I called in 4 swift fox to one set, and we got all 4 of them. So I've got actually some hides that between me and my sons, we just skinned them and put them in the freezer, and we're going to stretch them and get those stretched out and dried, and then hopefully ship them off to get sold.
Good Lord. Now, how many coyotes do you think you've killed in your lifetime?
I would have to sit down and think. I'm not.
Well, I mean, are you saying 10,000 plus?
I wouldn't say that, but I mean, it's not. I mean,
5,000 plus.
100 isn't a crazy year for me. And you got to understand, are you talking just calling? Or are you talking trapping? Because I also trap. When I'm trying to thin coyote populations, or even here on the ranch, man, we run baits. Like Trent shot 3 coyotes this last year on just a bait. He set up a bait, and shot 3 coyotes one night on a bait, then went out the next night, and I think he shot 1 or 2 on it. And then we had another bait down here. So I'd have to break it down and say how many we've shot over baits, trapping, and then calling them in. And then, of course, like everybody, if we're deer hunting or elk hunting and we see a coyote, or a lot of times that turns into a coyote hunt.
So it's not unrealistic to think you've killed over 5,000 coyotes in your lifetime.
I'd probably say it's a little less than that, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
Man alive. Now, so what's the price of a hide right now?
Just the coyotes? Ones that I videoed on the Predator Nation series, we were doing that. That's a lot. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
What's the price of a coyote right now?
Horrible. Whereas 8 years ago, I was getting $80 a coyote. You know what I mean? Some good coyotes, it were $10. It's just, it's not as good as it was. It's been a really rough market. A lot of because of Russia and China. They buy the majority of our furs. So yeah, kind of rough.
Now, do you think that, because I would venture to say that most guys who are doing it recreationally, they're not even selling their hides. They kill 3 or 4 a year. They're not selling those hides.
Yeah,
but do you think the increase in the popularity of coyote hunting has driven the cost of those down?
No, it has nothing to do with that. It's got to do with the market itself. It's got to do with tax on the fur trade. It's got to do with Russia and China. Are literally they were and were the biggest. The fur fashion industry goes up and down. There's been years where fur's super popular. You know what I mean? And then there's times it's not. So sadly, a lot of it's used for arts. You know what I mean? Things like that. But the fur market has been struggling for a little while. And, sadly, I don't know, it was like 10 years ago, I guess, 10 or 12 years ago. I mean, I was getting $1,200 for a Colorado Bobcat, an altitude Bobcat that was gorgeous, and now it's down to a couple hundred, 150 to 250, depending on the cat.
Wow.
So the fur markets, but that shouldn't discourage anybody from predator hunting. I mean, get out there and get after them. They make beautiful trophies. They're beautiful on the wall. You can tan them, make a beautiful, I've got some tanned ones hanging in my house. But I try and sell them. You know what I mean? I'll stretch them, dry them, and move them.
Now, what animal offers the best as far as fur value right now?
Oh man. Probably a wolf. Pine marten is probably pretty strong right now. Beavers kind of hold their own. They're decent, but bobcat or wolf, I would guess, would probably be in the top 2.
What's a beaver worth now?
It varies. Actually, I got a couple beavers this year, but I have not sold them, so I'm not sure what the beaver market is right now. It usually holds pretty decent though. Usually anywhere from $15 to $35.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Back in the day, it was worth a lot more, man. When I was trapping, when I was younger, I mean, it was nothing to get $60, $80 for pine marten. You know what I mean? $600. I still have like a copy of the first Bobcat I sold for like $600 when I was young, and I was just like, oh, this is awesome.
Just changed your life. Yeah, that's cool, man. And that's something that, I don't think a lot of people understand, because again, either you're doing it recreationally because it's fun, or you're trying to help the deer on your ground. And so you don't ever think much about it, but then you talk to somebody and you're like, wait, I can actually make money doing this. Like, I can sell these and make money. And you're like, yeah. And then it's even more addicting, because that gives you something to tell mama. Well, like, hey, I know I'm out every night, but I'm also bringing home some money.
There you go. Yeah. You get a little better, especially if you tan them, or, you know what I mean? Or, there's all kinds of different ways to sell them or market them. But, it's fun. It teaches you a lot about the outdoors. And like you said, it gets you outside.
Yeah. My buddy caught the bug, caught the addiction. And he said, man, my wife said I need to stay home tonight. And he said, I looked at her and I said, why? She said, because you've been gone every night for 3 weeks. And he's like, well, baby, I'm not out drinking. I'm not out running around. I'm not out gambling. Like if you check the Live 360 app, I'm out in the middle of a field somewhere, like with 2 dudes. What do you mean I can't go out?
It's all good. It's all good.
And she said, well, you are still married. And he said, well, you can come with me.
I love it. I love it.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. Fred, man, pleasure as always. We'll have to get together and shoot some cows sometime, man.
That sounds great. It's always good talking to you. Matter of fact, I'm about to post a picture of just had the cutest calf we've ever had. I think it's a little gray calf with a white face, but I got to go ear tag a couple calves right now, and we'll have the rifle in the truck. So we'll be looking for him here in about 10 minutes.
And if you've learned anything from me, Fred, during this time, it's that you need to buy screaming goats because it'll make your fainting goats funner.
That was hysterical. Yeah, I like where you're going with that.
I've always said that, man. I've always thought, dude, if somebody were to have a pair of screaming goats and a pair of fainting goats, you could sit there for hours.
You'd have it all. I love it.
Guys, I am all about prioritizing your feet. If you take care of your feet on the mountains or in the tree stand, you will just undoubtedly last longer. I remember the first time I ever went out west wearing a cheap pair of boots and cotton socks. Hot spots and blisters absolutely just took over that hunt. And here's what I learned. The more comfortable your feet are, the further you'll go, the faster you'll get there, the longer you'll stay on the mountain. And you'll just hunt better because your mind is on the hunt, not on your feet. That's when I come upon Schnee's. Schnee's makes the best mountain boots, in my opinion. I'm going to go ahead and tell you my favorite pair. My favorite pair is the Timberlines. I have ran the mountain in those on several different occasions, several different climates, several different, terrain types. And those boots just seem to always perform. They're light, they're fast, they're comfortable. There's no break in. They're Italian made. They're high quality, phenomenal boots. However, I'm also here in the Midwest, do a lot of Midwest hunting, a lot of tree stand hunting. And I'm a big fan of rubber boots for that. Here's why. Leather holds scent. So I'm a big fan that I don't want any leather on my feet when I'm whitetail hunting, walking in and out of my tree stands. So I've always been a leather boot guy. A couple years ago, Schnee's introduced the Highwoods. They now have it in a 0-gram insulation and a 400-gram insulation. It's a phenomenal rubber boot. Again, I have pushed those boots really hard. I've actually used them on quite a few snowy pheasant hunts, walked a lot of miles in them. They're super, super comfortable, super warm, super tough. Guys, prioritize your feet. Take care of your feet. If you're sitting in a tree stand, make sure your feet are going to be warm. If you're on the mountain, make sure you've got a good pair of merino socks and a good pair of boots so you can stay on the mountain longer, hunt harder, be more successful. Guys, go to schnees.com. That's SCHNEES.com for the best boots money can buy. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Y'all have a fantastic week. Make sure as you gear up for turkey season and as you get out there and predator hunt, go check out Blocker. Hands down the best gear you're going to find for turkey hunting. They've come out with some new products this year, a chest harness and some really cool backpacks, as well as some new leafy gear. Go check out Blocker for all your turkey hunting gear and your predator hunting gear. Guys, thanks for listening. Y'all have a fantastic week.